Hey Jay, good
Good
morning.
morning.
It's summer in the US, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's chilly outside. And I wasn't expecting that. I've decided to pull out my long sleeves. And also, if you're not watching on our YouTube channel, also look like an episode of Where's Waldo.
Okay.
And so, this is my Waldo shirt.
Scary because this morning I almost wore a striped shirt. And when I got on this morning, I was like, if she and I both had on striped
Oh my
shirts,
God.
it would have been bad.
This also doubles as a candy cane look. So,
This is our Christmas episode.
hello, welcome to Christmas in August. You know what? We have the best person. He's my best friend.
Oh, come on. No, don't start with that.
No, he's been my best friend for years.
Yeah.
And when we met him at the beginning, Zack has been with us since we really started. And remember that time he was in a cast?
Yeah, his arm.
That elbow thing. He's like 1,000 feet tall. Again, he's 1,000 feet tall. And
he's an icon.
He is. I mean, honestly, everybody knows him. And to be able to finally get him on the podcast, we cornered him. He had no free will. Clearly we were like, dude, you got to come on our podcast. We love you.
You want to let him talk? What do you think?
I guess we can. And
Yes.
This falls under the same episode of It's a Boy.
Can you do it?
It's a boy. It is a boy. And I love boy caregivers. Yeah, because the reality is that there's lots of male caregivers out there. And I think, again, like most general caregivers in general, they're underrepresented.
Sure.
And men are taking care of loved ones just as much as the females are. And they're on their way up because you have to some days. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. And so we're going to get, I'm so excited that Zach's here. So Jay, tell everybody about our bestie, Zach.
All right. This is my bestie, Zach. So first of all, I get to say, because I get to talk, I love our guest today. And Natalie, get ready, because he's my care crush. You have like professional crush. Zach is my care crush. And I can say that because I know his wife, Phyllis, and she's like, whatever, you can have him.
We love you, Phyllis.
Hey, Phyllis. So we're talking to Zack Demopoulos today. So Zach is, like Natalie said, he's one of the first people that we met and heard, because you'll hear Zach, like his voice is a radio announcer.
He's like
he
me.
Was was the first care conference that we were at. And since then, Zach, you have been a resource, but you've been a mentor, but you're an amazing friend and you're a champion for us. And we really appreciate that. So of course, Zach has a story like everyone else that we talked to. In 2006, he was drafted into caregiving for his father in less than 3 minutes, like many of us in a crisis. Today, he continues the role with his 95-year-old mother. I've shortened these, Natalie, so I'm not telling the whole story because she always tells me.
Oh, you already told it.
I'm
sorry. All right, we're done.
Bye-bye. He's had a diverse professional background, from corporate positions to co-founding and operating a home care agency for 13 years with his wife. One thing that remains constant, Zach is a huge care advocate. You'll see that in what he does today. And basically I say you're a force to be reckoned with, Zach. We are so excited to have you here with us today.
Yay!
The crowd goes wild.
Good morning, man. What an intro. Gee, I'm going to say that and listen to that when I'm having bad days. How's that?
Oh,
yeah, we can add music, a clapping band or something, whatever you want.
But I got to tell you something. While I was listening to that, I was thinking of this striped sandwich. If you were wearing striped shirt, JJ, and we know Nallie's wearing a striped shirt if you're watching this on YouTube, and I'm in the middle, we're talking about a striped Greek gyro sandwich because I'm right in the middle. And that is what's in my mind right now. So it might take a while for me to get that out of my mind.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, now I'm going to stick with my candy cane. I'm going to be thinking about fall weather, but then I'm like, oh, it's cold. But
I'm also thinking about Greek food for lunch. Thanks, Gap.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
This is really awesome though, because I'm glad that you mentioned you're Greek. I love that. I mean, we're going to talk about really. This is my favorite part, of course, asking you, start from the beginning you were born. But we had the opportunity to meet Zach in person, and then we met him up in his hood up in New Jersey when we were visiting another friend of ours, Doreen, who we all met on LinkedIn, which is really funny. And we went to Doreen Marchetti's house, and we all ate, and we ate so much food and had so much fellowship. But we got to learn more about Zach. So I think, the cornerstone of a piece of who we are is where we come from, and to understand that. And then that really informs of who we'll be as adults. And I love Zack's family. And so, Zack, I want you to go ahead and tell us, start from the beginning, kind of paint the picture of life and work your way up to care.
Well, my parents came over in a Greek boat in 1953. They battled high seas and stormy weather. They only had a bag and $2 in their pocket. First of all, thank you so much for being here. I am honored. When I met you two ladies, I thought you were nuts, and now I know for sure that you are, and I love that about you two. And thank you also on behalf of all caregivers on all the work you guys are doing. You are such amazing. But I am just honored to know that I met you guys in the beginning, and look at you now. You guys are stars. Yeah. You're lighting it up, and you're doing so much great work. Also, thank you for shouting out male caregivers. I think that is really important. I think we males need to talk more. All right. Get out from under that rock. Get away from your pride. There are many of us out there. So thank you for that as well. Thank you for shouting out, because we do need to tell our stories. We are not alone. So I know you, Natalie, you like my Greek roots. So I guess I'll just hopefully not bore your audience, but I will just briefly say, I am a very proud son of Greek immigrant parents. They came over really in the 50s, not on a boat, but they did come on a plane. But they immigrated without a word of English, and they found whatever jobs they could get. My dad was a dishwasher. My mother worked in a factory stuffing ice cream cones in boxes. Back before they had machinery doing that, right? And so they struggled very hard to raise us in a country where we had opportunity. I know that sounds corny, but I am really, really just grateful to them. I am the youngest of three. The baby. We'll talk about siblings later. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get into sibling dynamics, and I hope my sister and brother don't watch this. But we'll talk about a little bit about that. But because Greek families are so weird and so complex, but I love them. I love my Greek family. But my father and mother came into the States actually in 1972. We immigrated into Canada. And so I have quite a diverse experience, which I'm very grateful for. I've lived over in 7 different spots. But when my father finally landed in a spot, which is Charlotte, North Carolina, shout out to Charlotte where I grew up, he did get a restaurant and he did name it Zack's Hamburgers. Yay! Yes. And it's infamous, by the way, because every time I would fly to Charlotte, I'd be sitting next to somebody and they'd ask me who I am. We'd bring up Zack's Hamburgers and I go, I've been there. So it's infamous, And but I the reason why that is so important to me is I worked in a restaurant from 13 years old to 21, and I learned everything about life and business from my parents. My mother was in there. My father was in there. And maybe that's why I'm so dedicated to being a caregiver. I don't know. I mean, we probably need Barry and Julie to help us with that psychoanalysis. But we shout out to Barry and Julie too, by the way. But I just feel like that I owe them, because what they did for me, they really, really created opportunity. I was the only one of 3 that went to college. I remember when I was about 15 years old, I turned to my dad when I was mopping one night, and I worked about 6 days a week with him after school and all summer for 8 years. I mean, that's what I did, and I loved it. But I remember I said to him, Dad, I can't wait to have a restaurant like you. And he said, "It is stupido. You think I came all the way from Greece so you can own a restaurant?" He says, "You will get an education, you're going to get a good job, and you promised me you never have a restaurant." So that's why I don't have a restaurant, even though back down I do want one. So I became a caregiver for my dad. As you mentioned, JJ, I was drafted. My father was a hardworking immigrant, just like many of the Greeks that came over. Was stubborn, never went to a doctor, and it was a miracle that he never got sick. He smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day. He definitely had hypertension, probably all kinds of other stuff. Wow. But at 78, he had his first major illness, and he had a stroke, and it was a bad one. And he fell down and had a severe stroke. And my brother called me, and I'm in New Jersey, and I got one of my biggest jobs ever. This is a dream job, executive HR for the CFO of Pfizer. And I'm living the dream, and I get this phone call. I'm in the middle of a meeting with my boss. Actually, I didn't take the first call, but when he called again and again, I stepped out in the hallway, and my brother was crying and saying, "You need to get down here." And that was a 3-minute phone call I'll never forget. Dad's had a huge stroke. You've got to get down here. He didn't know what to do. My sister's in Canada, and I got drafted as a caregiver, and I immediately did it. That evening, I jumped on a plane, didn't tell anybody what I was doing except my wife, and went down there for 3 days. You know all about this, ladies. You got to start. The minute someone gets hospitalized, you have to start planning that transition of care. You have to start thinking about discharge. I was clueless. I didn't know a thing about caregiving. I didn't know a thing about hospitalizations. Zero knowledge. I learned it as I went, baptismal by fire, made a number of mistakes, including pissing my brother and sister off. Did I say piss on this show?
Well,
Sorry.
We're clean, so I'll just beep that out. Beep.
So did you notice? Well, hold on. He skipped a big part. We're stopping him right there. He skipped all this. You had a little bit of stuff that happened before that. Like, I think you had a family in there. So I want to know, like, what happened?
You sounded like you got married. You had some kids. Like, he totally skipped over. I don't even know how old he was. At this point, I'm thinking he just went 21 to nothing. Yeah. And so,
I mean, did you leave your kid? I mean, was Phyllis taking care of the whole family? Like
we love Phyllis. Yeah. No, Phyllis, and she's a powerhouse. No, everybody has to know about her.
Yeah. Wait,
let me tell you about this beautiful Greek love story. I'm married to my wife for 38 years. She was blind when she married me, and she and obviously very desperate. And so my wife and I, Phyllis is amazing. I mean, I'm just so blessed. We're married 38 years. We have 3 beautiful children. They all have beautiful spouses. I have 3 grandchildren.
They're beautiful too.
Thank you. We're blessed. I mean, we're not perfect by far. We're not perfect, but we are blessed. And thank you for bringing that up, because in caregiving, I guess I got to keep bringing it back to caregiving. When I jumped on that plane that night and left, I didn't think about my family. I didn't think about my job. I didn't think about any of that. Mm-hmm. And for the first couple of trips, it was okay. My kids didn't really care because they're used to dad getting on a plane and going on business trips. Yeah. And Phyllis is used to it. In fact, Phyllis and I said our marriage was really good because she knew exactly when I was departing and when I was arriving.
Same.
Yes, right? Right.
It is the best relationship is when they leave.
That's right. In fact, there was times like, when's your flight leaving? I mean, I'm kind of getting tired of you sitting around.
I was like, yes. I know he's not.
We think this.
We're okay.
Oh my God. I mean, I think that totally was the secret of our marriage is we had a lot of fun the night I left, and we had a lot of fun the night I came back. Yeah. So is this G-rated or is this PG? What is this?
Totally fine, but it's totally fine. That's normal. But here's the question. Here's like, when you got that call, how old were the kids? Like, where were you? Because you said from a professional standpoint, you're running hot. You're doing great stuff. You're moving your career. Cause I mean, you guys are up in New Jersey, your dad and your mom and dad are down in North Carolina or North Kakalaki. And, and so, but how old were the kids? It gives us kind of a frame of reference.
Yeah. So 2006, December 14th is when my brother called and my father had a stroke. And my oldest is 6 years old. My next middle son, Dimitri, shout out to Dimitri. He rocks, and Costa, he rocks. He was 3, and Anastasia was 1.5.
Holy
wow!
Yeah,
so you have littles.
Well, don't say that about me. Say that about Phyllis. I just left her hanging. I mean, yeah. And just so you know, I went 6 times to Charlotte in 6 months. 6 trips in 6 months. I went back and forth. All my expense, all my deal with it. One of those trips, Phyllis actually came down with me and to help me because I really didn't know what the hell I was doing. I'll be honest with you. I really didn't. And Phyllis is just God sent. She's just got a natural, mother caring spirit to her. And she can handle my mother really well, the mother-in-law. But we went down for a whole week in one of those 6 trips. Mm-hmm. And we had my father walking with a cane. We had a lot of fun. We made the trips to the doctors and everything with him because my mom didn't drive. My brother ran a restaurant the whole time, so he couldn't do anything, and my sister's in Canada. So we had my father walking with a cane and everything. And I will tell you, and so confessions, guilt confessions, I'll tell you one thing. After our last trip down there, I didn't go back down for 3 months because, I was burned out. And my job, I got to be honest with you, my boss was he was getting a little irritated with me. Yeah. This was a high-level job, and we had a lot of stuff going on with Pfizer. And no offense to him, because back in 2006, I don't expect males to understand this, but at one point he even told me, Do you need to keep going down there? Isn't this something your wife could do?
That's not uncommon though. And I think here's the thing, spoiler alert, probably even today.
Yeah.
Probably even today that comment has
I hope not.
out of somebody's mouth. I hope not. But here's the other thing. I want to take a break for a second because I want to come back in, but I want to ask you about, I do want to continue talking about work, and because you're in a position that could potentially impact you professionally from a long-term growth standpoint, as well as financially impacting your family, and what are you going to do? So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. I don't know about you, but my inbox is always cluttered with useless emails. But there's one I always open, the Confessions of a Reluctant Caregiver newsletter. You may say, Natalie, what makes yours so special? Well, I'm biased, but don't just take my word for it. Here's what our subscribers say they love. First, it comes once per month, and you can read it in under 5 minutes. Next, you'll find amazing tips and resources to use in your everyday life. And who doesn't love a recommendation? These sisters do, which is why we share sister-approved products and discount links to save you time and money. And of course, you're first to know about the upcoming month's confessions. Just like our show, you're guaranteed to relate, be inspired, leave with helpful tips and resources, and of course, laugh. Go to our website, confessionsofareluctantcaregiver.com, to sign up for our newsletter today.
All right, everybody, we are back with Zack Demopoulos. So
Zack is back.
Zack is back.
Sorry,
I can't believe we had to do the first break. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to talk really fast because Zack is fantastic. So we've gotten to this point. This is amazing where actually your boss says, well, can't your wife do this? So I too, like Nat said, am amazed that, first of all, you're in an HR position. And this is kind of a, well, why do you have to, why do you need to care? So we want to talk about that further. And then I also want to make sure we go back to, you went down and made decisions and your brother and sister were like, not entirely, excited about it. Maybe that's a little sibling, interaction. Let's talk about work again. Let's go back to that. And as Natalie said, talk about the impact that it had on your career. Go ahead, Nat.
Well, and also the fact it's 2006. Yeah. How much you're using video. We're in 2025. And we're like, I mean, look, we're recording remotely. Like, we didn't have that. Like,
no.
In behavioral health. So what kind of accommodations? Let's dig a little deeper into that.
Okay. And look at JJ. She wants to get to the dirt. She heard me about the sibling issues. She wants some dirt. Oh, don't worry. We're going to get there. So I mentioned to you, I felt guilt, right? So here's the reason why I felt guilt, because after I left with Phyllis we spent a week down there. I came back 3 months later and my father had thrown his cane away. He was sitting in a wheelchair, never got out of it again for 5 years. And I just felt guilt because nobody took him to appointments. No fault to anybody in particular. It's just the systems. And to your point, we just didn't know what we didn't know at the time. And I didn't have any resources. And I'll tell you, you made a good point. I'm in frickin' HR and I didn't know where to go. And somebody actually turned to me and said, have you called EAP? And I go, what? He goes, you're in HR, you don't even know what EAP is? I always thought that's something that you use in emergency. You're in an emergency, Zack. You're really struggling, because I was. I really was so upset when I went down and saw my dad in a wheelchair. My mother was trying to take care of him. I'm like, I got to get them some help. And so I did call EAP. And no offense to EAP, or maybe a little bit of offense to EAP, because at the end of the day, they're just, I got my beef with them. They could do a better job. As an HR person, I will state this as a fact. It's the most underutilized, overspent benefit organizations have today. So come on, guys. We need to do a little bit better job of that. We really do. And that means partner with the AP, and so that they can, really step up on the caregiving piece. I would hope it's improved since 2006, but from what I hear, it hasn't. But when I called the AP, all they did for me was send me a list of home care agencies. There were 15 of them in North Carolina. I picked the top one. I called them blind, didn't know what to ask. I gave them my credit card, and they basically took 2 weeks non-refundable deposit from me. My mother fired them after the second day because they insulted her. They walked in and go, look, we're not going to listen to you. He's our patient. We're not listening to you. And she goes, oh, yeah, well, listen to this. Get out of my house. And so that was 2 weeks. And, they kind of, again, it would have been helpful to know what questions to ask, to learn more about home care. To your point, Natalie, I had no resources to go to. And ironically, after I left Pfizer, what did I do? I went and I started a home care agency because of that experience. Phyllis and I ran one for 13 years. But there weren't a lot of resources. Not many people were talking about it. Listen, you got to understand something. I came from HR, right? And I was in HR in the late 80s, early 90s. We were battling how to deal with people leaving for maternity leave and not being discriminated against and not being penalized and giving them benefits. Not kidding, ladies, and I know you agree. I know you believe this. I would sit in talent planning meetings where they would say, well, let's take her off the career track because she just had a child. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Are you kidding me? I mean, right off the bat, they put an X on her because she just had a child. So we've come a long way with children. We've now got to focus on elder care as well and adult children with that need care.
That's true.
So I don't know. You want to talk about siblings? Is that right, JJ?
Well, it's interesting that I think we totally should talk about siblings because that's fun. Let me ask you one more question though. Did you talk about your care and the things that were going on with your colleagues at work?
No, not at all. I did not. First of all, did you get the part where we were Greek immigrants? We're very proud people. We don't share our laundry with anybody outside the house, the family. When I did eventually hire that home care agency, my mother was embarrassed. She was afraid who was going to find out. She didn't want people coming into her house so that they could see what's going on in the house. They didn't go back to church because they didn't want to see dad in a wheelchair. Very proud people. And I was the same way. That's the way I was raised. Very, very silent. We didn't even say, I love you publicly, to each other. So yeah, that I didn't tell anybody at work. In fact, you guys have met Selma, my partner, Selma Archer. She and I worked at Pfizer together. We didn't know each other's caregiver story. And here, about 10 years later, we met and had a conversation. It was an hour and a half conversation. We reconnected after 10 years on LinkedIn, and she tells her caregiver story. I'm telling mine, and we looked at each other like, how come we didn't know this about each other? And we're like, I never told a soul at work. I didn't tell my boss. I didn't tell anybody in HR except that one phone call to EAP.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, with my mother as a caregiver for my mother years later, I certainly have told the whole world and did podcasts about it. And I've learned a lot from my mistakes. And I like to think I'm a better caregiver from that experience.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so you have this incident with your dad happen. Your brother calls you and was like, you're going to have to get down here stat. Now, is brother oldest or the sister the oldest?
Brother is 16 months older than me and sister is 3 years older than me.
So the girl, isn't that interesting? Like she moved to Canada. So what was the conversation like with you guys internally? Because Emily, JJ, and I always have internal conversations. Like we're talking about what are we going to do? I mean, because I know you're talking about this stuff. Like what are we going to do with dad? What are we going to do with mom?
Yeah.
And what's the planning sound like and disbursement of duties?
Was there a plan?
Confession time. So Bessie,
sibling dynamics, this is a total dumpster fire. It's siblings can be a dumpster fire. Look, JJ brought out her dumpster.
I love that term. You guys use dumpster fire. I love it. So Bessie and George, my sister and brother, confession time. I ask for your forgiveness. I apologize. I totally did not keep you in the loop. I did not talk to you. I felt like I had this. I can handle this. And also to the priest who's listening to, I really just asked for forgiveness because I really screwed up. I made some bad mistakes because our dynamics before my sister and our dynamics are strong. I love my sister dearly and I would do anything for her. And she took care of us when we were young kids. But she was not in a position to jump on a plane and come down here and help us out. My brother and I have always had a rivalry. I think ever since I grew taller than him in the 10th grade, he kind of had it out for me a little bit. So
he's 5'1" and you're 6'10".
No. But you get the point. Metaphorically, yes, I think he's 5'1". So we've learned. The three of us have all learned this in our caregiving experiences that including your siblings is very important, especially if the dynamics aren't there to begin with. If you're going to have a plan, which I did not, and if you're going to try to reach out and get help. So I would say the first 6 years of helping my mother care for my father, I totally sucked at keeping my siblings. I had a lot of issues with my brother. I kept my sister out of it, thinking that she couldn't help anyway. And that made things so much worse, to the point where when my father unfortunately fell many times, he just refused to wear those slip resistant socks. He always wore those black nylon socks that he wore when he worked at the restaurant. And he was stubborn. He would jump out of the recliner, grab the walker, put himself in the wheelchair and go to the bathroom and try to go to the bathroom himself and not ask for my mom. And he finally had that one fatal slip in the bathroom where he broke his back. And it was terrible. I was actually in Greece for the first time in 10 years with my family. I was only 5 days in, and I get that phone call again from my brother. Once again, he's crying, and he's like, "You got to get over here." And I left. And this one was a bad one, and my father only lasted 6 months. But I'll never forget when we were in the hospital, and the doctor or the social worker and the pastor meets with us and says, "Look, you don't have end of life wishes here. You have no DNR. You got none of this. Typical, caregiving family on a caregiving journey. They don't know what the hell they're doing, right? We don't have any of these important legal documents in place that are necessary." And my brother and sister and my mother are listening to this conversation, and they don't want any part of it. They think this is sacrilegious to talk about end of life and to speak to a person and say, "Do you want them to unplug the machine if you're no longer living?" And so it fell on me. I don't know why it fell on me. And my brother and sister were like thought I was an evil person. Maybe my sister not as much, but my brother walked out. He walked out. He goes, "I cannot do this. You guys figure it out." And I don't blame him. I mean, he just emotionally couldn't handle it. And so I had the conversation with my father. I sat down with him, and he and I built a very strong relationship in the many years I worked with him. I just have nothing but the utmost respect. All these pictures back here, most of them are of him in the restaurant and all that stuff. And I know he's my huge inspiration as well as my mother. But I had a very, very important conversation with him, lasted 30 minutes, and he told me his wishes, and we got them documented. He says, "I do not want to live if I'm going to live this way." And he looked at me and said, "You're going to be honest with me, right?" I go, "Yeah, I'll be honest with you, Pops. Don't worry." So he did end up going into rehab after that. Never got out of rehab, and then he got rehospitalized again. He was in a bad shape, and I went and saw him. I went and saw him on his name day, which Greeks, by the way, they don't celebrate birthdays; they celebrate name days. So my dad's name is Dimitri, like my son's name, and actually my son's name Dimitri is like my father's name, right? I named him Dimitri, and I took my son Dimitri, and we went and did a surprise visit in the hospital with him. And I'll never forget this. We were in there, and not to get really dark here, but this is important. I can't emphasize how important it is to have these conversations with the people that we love. Somebody in the family has to do it. So I'm curious. I'm going to throw a question at you guys, JJ, Natalie, and your other sister. Who's the one who's having those direct conversations with mom? But I had to look at my dad, and he asked me a question that I'll never forget. He goes, "I want you to be honest with me. Am I ever going to be able to come home? Am I ever going to be able to walk again?" Because they ended up putting 2 rods in his back in hopes that he would get better. But I met with many of the physicians. I met with all his support staff, and they basically told him he'll never walk again. He'll need to be on support systems in a nursing home. I gave him the right. This is what I said to him. "No, Dad, there's no way. Unless, if you did come home, this is what it will take. This is what it will be. But you won't. I don't think you'll be able to come home." He goes, and he looked at me and goes, "Well, thank you." He died 3 days later. He went back to the rehab center, and he died in his sleep on his own. And I'm grateful for that. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
But it's just
that's
so. Who among you sisters does so the guest turns at the table on you? Who among you 3 sisters is the one who has that direct conversation with your parent?
So I had the the honor of going through the DNRs and all of that with Mom, and that was awful. Like to have to bring that up, all of that, and she did not want to participate in that. So, but we had to do that, and that was in 2019. And she's changed it once. So, but I think we all, she says, when can I leave? She always wants to change her residency, and that's all of us. Mom, we can't leave, so.
Yeah. And we equally say that. I mean, that's the thing. So while JJ had that conversation, and I think the important thing is that between the three of us, we share when those conversations happen and we reinforce, we do not undermine one another in those conversations to try to give, I say this respectfully, false hope, because our mom's not going to be able to leave skilled nursing. And so as much as we say, Mom will say to us, I really want to leave. We want you to too, but we just can't because there's not enough human capital and resource to be able to support you in the home. It is just too much. And then for us, when you're direct with Mom, it makes it a little bit easier because that way you're not like, oh, well, maybe, we'll think about it. Like, I think you're right. I don't think you give false hope. I think you have to say, this is our reality. This is where we're at. And I'm going to be really blunt. My parents didn't plan the way they needed to. And I don't think when you come from rural areas, but it doesn't really matter. Most folks live paycheck to paycheck. We grew up, my parents lived paycheck to paycheck. There wasn't this massive savings. And that's when people relied on pensions, and they thought their retirement from their company where, my dad's pension was going to do it. And, the way that they chose, which we did not know about, the way they chose to do the disbursement of our dad's pension, they didn't expect our dad to die first. The plan for them was not that. And God was like, that's cute. I'll show you. And so when Dad died 3 years after he retired, and he was 55 when he retired, wow. I mean, and so they front end loaded because Dad always worked side jobs. He's always had second and third things that he was doing, rather rebuilding cars or painting cars or things that he loved to do and doing siding on houses. That's how he was going to earn supplemental funds. And then Dad wasn't there. And so, and then they ran through the front end side. So I think it's, and I know that you talk about this, you and Selma probably talk about this from a work standpoint. You've probably gotten into this, is you also can't bankrupt yourself. And so you have to find this fine line of how much support can I give to my parents while also not it negatively impacting me and my spouse, because it's not just me. If I was single, that's probably a different financial story. But when you have a spouse and you have kids, you have to think that, I think that shifts the way that you think about things.
Yeah, 100%.
So I want to take a break here real quick because we're at that break point, and then we'll be right back. We're going to continue on.
CareForward is a technology platform that connects volunteers with seniors, the disabled, and those with chronic or complex health conditions, offering support like transportation, home visits, and more. Details online at careforward.io.
All right, everybody. Zack is back. I use that.
Zack is back. Zack is back. I love it. Zack is back.
Is singing AC/DC. Zack is back.
I want to make sure. So we have continued to have so many questions for Zack. So I want to make sure that I guess I have a big question, because we talk so much and you advocate so much for working caregivers. At what stage, first of all, during your father's illness, before he passed, did you and Phyllis own the home care business? And if you did during those stages, was it different being self-employed versus being corporately employed?
Yeah. All right. So that's a great question. So my father had a stroke in 2006. He passed away in 2011. Mm-hmm. I started the home care with Phyllis in 2009.
Okay.
So we did have the home care. And it's funny you say that, because I had a home care business and I couldn't convince my mother to get help in Charlotte with a home care business that was part of my franchise system. I even brought the owner of Comfort Care. We had a Comfort Care business. Shout out to Comfort Care. And I brought him, Phil is his name, great guy. I bring him into the house. My mom's giving him baklava, the pastries. She's being real polite. And we're having a 30-minute conversation. my dad's sitting in the corner just shaking his head because he knows this isn't going anywhere. And Phil, God bless his soul, he's such a great guy. We walk into the driveway when he leaves. He goes, I thought that went really well. And I go, nah, that was like the tiger smiling at you, about to eat whatever you have in your hands.
You got 2 pieces of baklava. You're not getting anything.
That's it. And my mother never used home care until it was too late to use home care. So that's what was really frustrating. But yeah, we ran that business. Now, you asked a great question. Is it easier when you're running your own business? And JJ, you made such a great point about that when we talked to you for our stories from real caregivers, working caregivers. And thank you for that, both of you, for doing that for us, for Selma and I on our website. But no, it's not easier. In the beginning, it might feel easier because you do have the luxury of, I can break away. But guess what was happening? My business suffered big time because I was the marketing, building the client relationship, developing the business side. And where Phyllis was the back office and all the hiring and training. And so when I would leave, I'd leave for 3 days, 4 days, paying out of my own pocket. I would travel. I stayed in a hotel for, reasons we talked about earlier, because I sold my mother's home. And so all these expenses were adding up, and I would come back, and it took 24 hours to try to cleanse yourself from the emotion that you're going through, and from all the issues. And guess what? You also have follow-up phone calls, because when you're down there, you're trying to meet as many people as possible, right? The executive director, you're meeting with the director of nursing, you're meeting with medication specialist, dietitian. You meet with all these people that may or may not see you on the spot, and then you have follow-up visits with them. You've got the social worker. You got so many people you got to talk to, and if you don't see them, they're returning your calls when you come back to work. And meanwhile, you're trying to hit the ground running with all these client issues that Phil says, I'll come back. I will have literally 12 messages. I mean, anyone who's familiar with the home care business, it's a 24/7 dumpster fire that you're trying to put out all the time, right? So true. I got to tell you, when we say in our business, and Natalie and JJ, you know this very well because you preach this, caregiving takes a physical, mental, emotional, and financial toll on you. I didn't see it at first. I would say in the first 6 months of going down to Charlotte back and forth, I didn't see it. But man, oh man, the next 2 years, I paid a really big price for it. A really big price for it. And my business did suffer. And so I highly suggest to caregivers out there, even in your own business, to your point earlier, Natalie, about whether you're single or not, and JJ, about having a plan, you've got to have a plan. You've got to have provisions in place. You've got to have people that you're going to focus on, and hopefully you can do it early in this journey, because I didn't do it my first time around. I definitely did it with my mother. Yeah. I really have.
So let's say lessons learned, because I'm looking at our time. I'm like, gosh, we could talk like hours and hours. We're besties.
Oh, God.
You have to talk about your mom, because here's the thing. I love that your mom is 95. So you've got good genes. And
she's got very good genes.
You're going to live forever.
Her skin looks better than mine. I'm not kidding. And she looks fantastic. Yeah.
Tell you right now. So what did, we talked with our friend, like it was like with Paul J, if you remember him, I think it's, wait, I'm going to butcher Paul's last name.
Potastic.
Thank you. And so he learned from caring for his parents, and I think his dad was first and then his mom, and he learned. So what were the things that you did differently when it came to supporting your mom? Because your dad passes, and then what happens? Because now your mom is solo and she doesn't drive, you mentioned. And so nothing says like, well, that's like a fart in church. And how am I going to get her around? Am I just going to send her an Uber the whole time? And I live in New Jersey.
I think it's time to bring Barry and Julie back, because what I'm about to talk about, Mom, definitely I could use some therapy. It's Mom is a piece of work. God bless you, Mom. I love you, Mom. But you are a piece of work. You really are. I mean, my mother is one amazing woman. Phyllis has always said this, and she's 100% right. My mom was born in the wrong generation. If she was born in our generation, she'd be a kick-ass CEO of an organization that you would not want to work for. Because she will look at you in the face and say, you're a good worker, but you're going to be terminated tomorrow. That's it. That's all there is to it. I'm sorry. I can't keep you around anymore. So lessons that I learned, and I learned quite a few. Let's talk about some of the most important ones.
Yeah.
Number one, the sacrifices I was making with my family and my finances, I slowed that down. My kids are now much older in 2011, 2012. So when my father passed away, now we started thinking about mom who lived alone like you guys did.
Yeah.
You guys did the exact same thing. Your father passed away so early, and you kind of said, well, mom's okay, but we'll keep checking on her. Yeah. We did the same. Again, my brother ran a restaurant for 6 days a week, and his wife, God bless her, she's a saint. She would go by and check on mom 2-3 times a week, but nobody was really seeing her every day. She was living by herself in a house, and things were okay for the first few years, like you guys saw. Mm-hmm. But then around 2000, she did pretty well for about 5-6 years, and then around 2018, 19, the cocky hit the fan. She got hospitalized 3 times in 4 months for dehydration and UTI. And that's when I raised the red flags to the siblings. Now, my lessons learned. Number one, I don't immediately jump on a plane. I don't immediately spend money without thinking about it. Because even though we were doing really well with our business, my kids were older. We're starting to go to colleges. I really needed to stop and think long term. Okay, this is the beginning. I may have to start going down to North Carolina every quarter. How am I going to do that? And are there other options? Can we maybe hire somebody where we all split the cost, and have somebody kind of like a geriatric care manager or an aging care life specialist that they are called nowadays that can help us oversee this, right? Yeah. Oh, no, mom wouldn't have any part of that. I can tell you that. But the second lesson I learned is start including my siblings. I started doing emails where I included all of them. Of course, Brother George doesn't do emails, or when he does, they're ones that you don't want to read. But they could, and only of late, like the last 3 years, where texting has become more, it's easier to use. I now do group texts. Every single time I talk about mom, it's my sister-in-law, it's my brother, it's my sister. Yep. We're all on the same text. Yep. Again, George, please read your texts, please. So the second lesson I learned was to include my siblings. I have a much better relationship with my brother now, and my sister is much more involved. I will reach out to her. I say, hey, can you listen? I'm in the middle of a lot of stuff. Can you reach out to the nurse? Because you can't call the director of nursing and expect them to answer the phone at a nursing home, right? But here's the third most important, I think, lesson I learned, again, from my dad, is you've got to have those direct conversations with mom. You can't fudge it. You can't give in, but you got to respect her independence and dignity, okay? Yeah. And you've got to figure out whose role is what between the 3 siblings, okay? Yeah. So Bessie, my sister, is kind of a pacifier. Oh, mom, it's going to be okay. Don't worry, things are going to be good. Zach's a little tough, but it's okay. And George, in emergencies, will go and see her and help us with something on site. Boots, strap on the boots. I will reach out to her.
It does sound like
right? Yeah, right. But here's the most important thing now, mom's also a martyr, just so you guys know. Mom's a handful. So mom, mom, who will remind me to this day, you kick me out of my house. You kick me out of my house. You will remind me to this day. But let me remind everybody listening, at 95 years old, her skin looks better than mine. She is well taken care of. She is hydrated. She hasn't had a UTI in over 2 years, right? They're on top of the care there. Yeah. Of course, it takes a lot of due diligence, as we all know. Right. Shout out to Susie Singer-Carter, who just came out with an amazing documentary that we all need to watch about nursing homes, okay? But here was the most important thing that I have to share. When she had hospitalized 3 times in 4 months, I flew down to Charlotte, and I met with her face to face. That's the only way. And now she started getting hard of hearing too, which really makes things difficult over a phone. By the way, not many people know this, but hearing aids are great for human voice, but they're not great for mechanical voice, which means TVs and radios and phones. Didn't know that, did you? So yeah. So it's very difficult, even when people have hearing aids, to try to have phone conversations. And I'm a long distance caregiver. I speak to my mom almost every day, especially back then. But anyway, I go meet with my mom and I say to her, look, Mom, you can't stay home alone anymore. I need to bring in care. I know you were always resistant in the past, but I've got to bring in care. She said, no, nobody's coming to my house. I said, okay. So here's plan B. You're going to have to go to a CCRC, right? One of these continuous care retirement communities, where you'll be there and live in an apartment. I can get people to come in, check on you, and God forbid, something bad happens, at least you can stay in that community. That's and right. she's like, no, I'm not going. I'm not leaving my house. I said, well, here's your third choice. You're going to fall. You're going to have a bad fall, or you're going to have a bad hospitalization, and you won't have a choice, and you're going to go straight to a nursing home. So you tell me, of those three choices, which one do you want? Because I'm not leaving till you give me one of those. And I have to go back to work. I have to go back to my family. And it took about 24 hours for her to, just sit there and just like she was knitting, and she was angry. She was just angry. But she had to sit, and you have to let it be their decision, right?
Yeah, I agree.
But you had to do it in a way where they have to pick. It's a multiple choice. It's not an open-ended question. And that's what I learned from my first caregiver journey. Yeah. I at least had the wherewithal, the tools, the resources. And so once she made the decision, I hired somebody in Charlotte to take us around, right? So shout out to placement specialists who are fantastic. And because I'm in the business and because I had Comfort Care in Charlotte, he was able to help me. And by the way, a great resource for all of you, wherever you live in this country, if you ever want to know where do I turn for resources, call a reputable home care agency, even if you're not going to use them. They know all the great resources in the area because they work with them. They're referral partners. So that is one great way, and it's a good way to build a relationship with the home care agency. But they're happy. If they're a good agency, they're happy to volunteer a number of great resources. And that's where I learned about an agent in place specialist and also a placement specialist. And so they took us around, and Mom picked one. So we were able to find a CCRC. It was great. But guess what was happening? She refused to let people come see her. So we're like, all right, well, at least she's in a facility where if something happens, the director of nursing over at the assisted living can pop over and see her. But she ended up getting hospitalized again a couple of times. She just wasn't taking care of herself. And so she actually ended up having a bad hospitalization, and she lost her ability to walk. And so I had some issues with the assisted living there at the CCRC, and so I moved her out of there, and I had to go take her to an assisted living. Now, this is all during COVID, just, so I moved her out of her house.
That's even worse. It was during COVID.
Yes. All during COVID, I moved her out of her house. 6 months later, I moved her into a CCRC, a continuous care retirement community. 3 months later, I took her out of the CCRC and moved her into an assisted living. And then out of that assisted living, she only lasted a month. And then she ended up going to a nursing home with rehab visits all weaved in there. Yeah. So within a year, she moved 3 times during COVID. And Phyllis and I had to go down there and do all this, as far as moving her. I mean, packing her up. It took us 7 days. We spent 7 days down there to pack up that house, sell it, and move it. So, man, I'm tired just talking about it.
It's exhausting if you think about it. I mean, you've got kids. Phyllis is also honestly, I'm saying Phyllis has her life too.
Well, she's running the business while I'm gone. I mean, we sold our business in 2021. So we've been running the business all this time too. Wow. So yeah, but it's a challenge. Last thing I'll share, what have I learned again? So I've eased back, luckily,
I don't know what happened. I don't know where Zach's at.
Did he drop?
Well, he's still showing on there, but he's blacked out.
Zach. Oh, wait a minute. He's muted in his. Wait a minute. Zach, are you there?
I just texted him.
Oh, he was muted.
Hey, Eugene, we've told Zach to jump out and jump back in. And so this will probably be 2 recordings. Yeah, this will be 2 recordings. And we're going to let him come back in. Actually, we're not stopping the recording, Eugene. You're just going to hear this delay. And that's what happened. So when he said the last thing, that's where we've got this pause right now for the last 2+ minutes.
Oh.
All right, he's back in.
Sorry, guys.
I don't know what happened. That was so weird.
That was weird. And I use Riverside all the time.
No. It's totally fine. So the last thing, pick up right there. So the last thing.
What was I saying?
There was one last thing that you were going to make a recommendation.
Oh, so I was telling you, so this is really important. Again, for those of you planning and financially, we were really honing in on the financial piece. So we sold my mother's home. It was $400,000. That only lasted 3.5 years. So we went through that. The only saving grace for my mother, and again, this is why she would have been a kick-ass CEO, is that she and my father bought the property that the restaurant was on. And thankfully, which again, she put me in charge to help her, and we were able to sell that property. And she was able to get some good finances that not only helped pay for the nursing home, but then I asked her to help pick up some of my expenses. And I have no shame in that, because I've spent many years of doing that on my own. And she said, absolutely, so she will pay for my flights, pay for my hotel. And I go down there every other month, and I will see her, and we'll spend 3-4 days. I rent a van, which she pays for, and I rip out the front seat and I put her in the front, and we go paint the town red for 3 days. We'll go see Dad in the cemetery, which she never gets to do. We'll go to some restaurants. We'll go do things. We'll go to Walmart. Holy mackerel, male caregivers out there. If you take your mother to Walmart and you're shopping for bras, be ready to be embarrassed.
That may be the best advice that we will give anyone.
That's the best advice. Because you know what? Your needs change as you get older, that's Zach, right. And you need a little bit more support.
That's right.
And I got to tell you this. Phyllis has, find Zach on the phone, and she knew I was at Walmart in Charlotte, and then she checks a half hour later. I'm still at Walmart. She checks a half hour later. I was in there for an hour and a half, and then she calls me and goes, do you need help? Do you need me to send somebody like 911 to get you out of there?
This is the moment where she says, sounds like your old boss, do we need to call a woman in to help?
Yeah.
And that's the moment that you're like, you probably do.
Yeah.
So I will say it's a different dynamic. And we always say, it's not preferring one parent over the other, but I think the challenge is like we would have experienced if the roles were reversed and it was our dad, it would be very, very different for us but also the relationship was different. And so I think that's what's so unique if you think about being adult children trying to care for your parents and support them at any level, is the relationships are different. They continue to evolve, yet not evolve at all. Like your mom saying, no, I'm not going to do that, buddy. And I'm the mom and you're probably the son. And so I do have to transition this on because I can't believe we're way over our time, but we don't really care. And so that's our standard answer. We're over our time, but we don't care because this is so important. This is such an important conversation. So we have to do sister questions and there's some important things. I know JJ's going to ask, I know her question because I already just know it, but go ahead, Jay. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. I have 2. One of them is serious, but my second one is not. So my first question is, Zach, I need you to tell me what you're doing now with Selma and what got you into that, your advocacy, and why that's so important for working caregivers.
Oh yeah, thanks for asking. So when I mentioned earlier that Selma and I got on the phone after 10 years, we started sharing each other's caregiver story, and I'm like, my goodness, I can't believe that. We ought to do something about this. And we said let's write a book. And so we started writing a book. And I'm not a writer. She's the writer, but I would write a chapter. She wrote a chapter, and finally we agreed. And that's why I love you, Selma. You're yin, I'm yang. And she said, Zach, this isn't working out. Maybe I should write it. You edit. I go, okay. Thank God.
That's great. I love group work.
Yes. And so, but halfway through it, I sold my business. And I took 2 years off. I retired. Phyllis and I traveled. I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. I got to meet you phenomenal ladies. I've met over 100 plus caregiver advocates that I just shout out to all of you out there. But the more I started looking at this, I started thinking, you know what? There's a lot of books about caregiving. I think we need to change. I think we need to focus more on maybe working with employers so that we could try to do a larger audience. Because of my HR background, because of Selma's legal background, we have a lot of corporate experience. Because of our personal caregiving background, we have a lot of experience. Because of my professional caregiving background, so we're like, maybe we should bring those together and see if we could try to help employers. And so we just changed midstream, which I love that about us. And so, because we're both not young spring chickens, and she hates when I say that, but before the end of this year, we are looking and planning to announce, our services, which we are really excited about. We have a board of advisors that we have invited to join us to guide us so that we're not typical consultants, so that we feel like that we're getting some good guidance as to what is going to be the best approach holistically to help employers. Because it's great that employers might have an ERG, or they may have a benefit here and there, or they may do a webinar in caregiving, but that's just trying to put a finger in a hole where, how do you say it with the, Selma does it so well, but that's like trying to plug a hole, but just another hole pulls out, right? So it's not really taking care of the problem. It's just trying the solution. It's not really a solution. So that's kind of what Selma and I are doing now. We're really excited about it, and hope to share more about it by year end.
Yeah. So if your employer stinks in the caregiving world, you need to send them to Zach, is what we're saying, because he's going to try to help.
You need to make sure you follow Zach and Selma anyway on LinkedIn and on, that's where you're going to stay up to date, and they have lots of great conversations. We were on their show, and it was just a ton of fun, and really talking about, because, I think it's, Zach, 7 out of 10 individuals are also caregivers, are also work either full-time or part-time. And so we can't afford not to. I think that's what we have to have these conversations, and caregiver issues are business issues. And if you ignore that, then it's going to impact your bottom line. Let's just be really clear. And so this is a recruitment, a retention, and a culture issue. And caregivers, I like to say, are some of your best employees. And so do not be afraid to employ those caregivers, because they can multitask like no other.
Okay, why don't we do this? I love what you said, JJ, but why don't we just soften it just a tad, because I'm an Aquarius, so I like this. I'm a lover and a hugger. So employers out there, if you kind of not doing things right, come onto this show first and confess, and then pop over to Zach and Selma, and then we'll help take care of you. How's that?
That's a great idea.
I love it. I think that's a great.
That's a challenge to the employer listening to it. HR leader, manager out there listening to this show. Come onto the show first. Talk about it with these two amazing therapists, and then come over and we'll help you out.
We'll cure you. Okay, here's my funny. Why did the restaurant get named Zack's?
Oh, you did not ask me that.
Oh, I knew we were going there.
That was my funny. I just need the quick answer, and then Natalie gets her question.
Okay, so every non-Greek is going to shake their head when I say this, and every Greek is going to nod their head when I say this.
Okay.
So in 1975, when my father purchased a restaurant, trying to find a name for it, obviously Greeks name restaurants after themselves. Jimmy's, Joe's, George's, right? Well, my dad's name is Jimmy. In Greek, it's Demetrius, and there were already a few Jimmys in Charlotte. My brother's name is George, and there was already George and Jimmy are the most popular names in Greece. Heaven forbid you name a restaurant after a female. So my mom and my sister were out of the picture. So that just left me.
Burgers, although that's got a ring to it.
Ooh, I like that. Bessie, we missed our calling. Bessie's Burgers. So Zach was a very unknown name. I mean, now people call their dogs Zach. So, Zach was not very popular, had a little, uniqueness to it. So my dad decided to call it Zach. And it worked because I'm the only one of the three that stayed in there and worked for 8 years, even though my brother took it over. Shout out to my brother for doing a good job. He took it over and ran it for 25 years. So
by default, basically, Zach, is what you're saying. You won by default.
It was fine. It was the last option.
Okay.
Emily would be like, I get the last option.
Okay.
But let me tell you, it was amazing being named, a restaurant named after you. I never got tired of it. To this day, when I hear people talk about Zack's Hamburgers, it just gives me a lot of pride. I got to tell you, oh shoot, we were in a couple of films. Shoot, I'm trying to remember. Homeland. I think second season, episode 9. The entire part of the season was filmed right there at Zack's Hamburgers. It's just an infamous restaurant that was there for so many years, and when it closed, it really ticked off a lot of people. It really did. For 3 days, there were long lines around the block because it was the last 3 days the restaurant was open. I flew my entire family down there for the last 6 hours of Zack's Hamburgers. It was amazing. It was great.
Awesome.
Oh, I love that. I love family. I love that. All right, so here is always the last question. I always ended it with this one, which is, if you think about it, what really was your favorite? What is your? It's okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry about my doggies there.
That's okay. I can hear it coming through. That's
all right.
I need to make sure.
What's the question again? And I can't. For some reason, you're low. JJ, Sheila.
Down, Natalie.
Oh, my mic just.
Hold on.
Really
We'll just
low.
start that question again.
We'll start the question
There you
again.
go.
Producer, could you please edit that out for us, please?
Edit that out, please. Thank you, Eugene. Sorry, hot mess. All right, and so I always like to end with one last question, always the one that we always do. What is your favorite guilty pleasure? What is the one thing you do just for you?
Okay, and again, I hope Mom's not listening, which I know she's not, because she can barely use the TV remote. One of my favorite guilty pleasures, and I've listened to your show, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and I will tell you, this is a true guilty pleasure, and you'll know why it's guilty. So when I'm down visiting Mom, I'm literally with her 24/7 for 3 days. Right. And in the middle of the day, I encourage her to go and rest in the bed. Plus, she takes a water pill, so that's the time to unload, get changed, because Zack ain't doing that for you at Walmart. I can assure you that. And so I let her stay in her bed to rest, or her recliner to rest her back, because she can't walk, right? She's in a wheelchair the whole time. And it's 3 hours between like 2 to 5. And she always tells me, go to the hotel, rest, Zack, rest. I go, okay, Mom, I'll go to the hotel and rest. I don't go to the hotel rest. What I do, and Charlotte, shout out to Charlotte, famous for a lot of great breweries. And I love breweries. And so between 2 and 5, I go to a brewery and I sit back and have a couple of brews, find an outdoor one, relax. Sometimes I'll sneak a cigar in and just chill and just, I'm in heaven. I don't even get on my phone. I'm just like, Dad, I promised you I would take care of Mom and Bessie, but man, you could have left me with a little more something here, Dad. I mean, but then again,
that's hilarious.
Those are my guilty pleasures. Those are my guilty pleasures.
I love that. That's a good one. Yeah. I really like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Well, Zack, thanks so much for being with us. This has been an absolute pleasure. We knew it was going to be a ton of fun. Mm-hmm. And so we're just so grateful to call you a bestie. You are our brother in care without question. And we love you, and we love Phyllis and the kids. And I feel like we always have, we can't not say Phyllis. We love her, and she's this teeny person. So
she is.
She
comes up to my hip. She comes up to my hip, as JJ says. So does everybody else. But I love you. I love you guys too so much. And thank you for. I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. The work you're doing, the stories you're telling, the resources that you guys are giving, your crews that you're doing out there. We need this. We really need this. And I just thank you from the bottom of my heart that you guys are dedicating so much time and energy and resources behind this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. JD, you want to take us out?
Absolutely, guys. Thank you for listening. And until we confess again, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.